Namaste, I'm Sreyashi and I'm delighted to welcome you to the next event of our Rasa Festival as we continue through our season. For the festival, we have curated a rich variety of programs and we have been bringing them to you over several months, 1 to 2 events per month. It is a great pleasure and honor for us to present renowned artists from the US, India, and other parts of South Asia, and across a wide range of art forms such as dance, music, theater, film, poetry, visual art, and photography. Today, I'm especially delighted to present one of my collaborative dance theater works titled Kunti Kaunteya Katha. This piece is my collaboration with Dheeman Bhattacharyya, who is a multi-talented artist in theater and dance, as well as a professor of comparative literature at Vishwabharati University in Shantiniketan, West Bengal. Also joining us in performance is theater actor Keshob Bhattacharya, a talented artist from Kolkata, India. In this piece, we interpret the life of Kunti, an important female character from the Indian epic Mahabharata, from a different perspective, focusing primarily on the silence that surrounds her life, particularly in her relationship with Karna, the son she abandoned at birth. We delve into Kunti's psyche, which is shaped not only by her own personality and motivations, but also dictated by social norms, pressures, and expectations of her as a woman. We explore Kunti's life as a daughter, a queen, and a mother in state diplomacy and her role in the Kurukshetra war. But we also find empathy for her inner turmoil, guilt, fragility, and regret. Juxtaposed against this is the life of the great tragic hero of the Mahabharata, Karna, searching for his identity, forever an outsider and marginalized, seeking recognition from the world around him. In the end, both are left with unfulfilled desires for acceptance, acknowledgement, and mother's love. An important theme and motif in this work is that of silence, the tension between choosing to remain silent and being silenced by society. In creating this piece, we have drawn our primary inspiration from Tagore's well-known poem, Karna Kunti Shangbad, but that is only the initial springboard to further explore the psyche of Kunti and Karna. Many other texts have informed the performance narrative. Instead of a linear narrative of events, we go back and forth in time, recalling the circumstances of both characters. The interactions between Kunti and Karna reflect their meeting, as well as encounters both of them had imagined but remained unfulfilled. The narrative text has brief sections of Tagore's poem, but mostly consists of original writing by Dheeman. The original music is especially composed for this piece by Indrajit Sen and includes a few songs of Tagore. We have used the Odissi style of dance and movement theater as the performance technique. We are very excited to follow up the performance with an enriching discussion with Manjula Kumar from Washington, D.C. Manjula is an educator, actor, director, filmmaker, and activist with a strong belief in the arts as an agent to bring social and political change. After over 30 years of working at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. as a program director in the Office of Education, she is now working as an independent consultant and programmer. At present, Manjula is the president and executive director of Global Performing Arts. Through numerous academic projects and public programs, she has worked tirelessly to build bridges of cross-cultural understanding between diverse communities. As always, we are grateful to the Ann Arbor District Library for partnering with us for the Rasa Festival. We hope to see you at the next festival event.
শোনো শোনো সুধীজন, শোনো দিয়া মন, মহাভারতের কথা করি গো বর্ণন। না থাক, এসব অনেক হয়েছে। তবে আমি কে এটা জানতে চান তো বাবু মশাইরা? এই সাংঘাতিক প্রশ্ন। না, আমি ব্যাস নই, বক্রতুণ্ডও নই, ভরতবংশের কেউ নই, নই কোনো পূজারী ব্রাহ্মণ। আমি হলাম আপনি, অথবা আপনি, অথবা ভুলি দিলাম তো। মহাভারতের কথা অমৃত সমান। আমি হলাম ওই ছায়ামুখ। ওকে, হতে পারে আপনার পাশের বাড়ি মেয়েটি, অথবা আপনার ধরনী। ঘাবড়ে গেলে? আরে ধুর, ও হলো বৃথা। কিন্তু ওর মুখ বাঁধা কেন? কে বাঁধল ওর মুখ? ও কি সেদিনও তুমি ছিল। ওই যে সেই পুত্র কর্ণ, হয়েছে গ্লানি। আলোর বদলে মিলেছে গোপন অন্ধকার। আজ সেই সূর্যদেবকেই আরাধনা করছেন সূর্যপুত্র কর্ণ। উপস্থিত ছিলেন, যার পরিচয় সুতপুত্র দুর্যোধন, যাকে অঙ্গরাজ্যে অভিষিক্ত করেছিলেন। কিন্তু না, কুন্তি কিছু বলেননি। অভাগিনী আড়াল থেকে দেখেছিলেন তার প্রথম পাত্রকে। অস্ত্র পরীক্ষার দিন হস্তিনানগরে তুমি ধীরে প্রবেশিলে তরুণ কুমার রঙ্গস্থলে, নক্ষত্র খচিত পূর্বাশার প্রান্ত দেশে নবোদিত অরুণের মতো। যবনিকা অন্তরালে নারী ছিল যত, তার মধ্যে বাক্যহীনা কে সে অভাগিনী। অতৃপ্ত স্নেহ উদার সহস্র নাগিনী জাগাচ্ছে চর্চর পক্ষে। তাহার নয়ন তোমার সর্বাঙ্গে খেলো আশিস চুম্বন, অর্জুন জননী সেজে। কুন্তি তার নিজস্ব রাজনৈতিক বুদ্ধি, মনস্বিতা ও মাতৃত্বের প্রাণী দিয়ে বুঝিয়ে দিয়েছিলেন। মনে করিয়ে দিয়েছিলেন দ্রৌপদীর প্রতি অবমাননার কথা। কুন্তি বারে বারে ফিরে এসেছেন তার নিজের স্বীকৃতি পাওয়ার জন্য। তার চির জিজ্ঞাসা, আমি কে? অন্য নারীর অবমাননায় তিনি হয়ে উঠেছেন আরো কঠিন। ওদিকে তার অতীত কৌন্তেয়, সেও বারবার নিজেকে খুঁজে ফিরেছেন। অবমাননায় হয়ে উঠেছেন কাঁচ কাটা হিরে। বিদুর মনে করিয়ে দিয়েছিলেন কর্ণই হবে যুদ্ধের কারণ। হয় অর্জুন, না হয় কর্ণ। কুন্তি আর ঘুমোতে পারবেন না। হায় নিয়তি।
প্রণবী তোমারে আজকে অর্জুন জননী তুমি।
এসেছি তোমারে নিতে জ্যেষ্ঠ পুত্র মোর।
শুনেছি লোকমুখে জননীর পরিত্যক্ত আমি। কে আমি? কেন ফেলে দিয়েছিলে তবে? আর যখন যুদ্ধ উপস্থিত তখন হয় অর্জুন না হয় কর্ণ।
এ কি অভিশাপ!
যুদ্ধ শেষ। হিংসা হিংসাকে জন্ম দেয়। আমি কে? এই প্রশ্নের মেলেনি উত্তর, কারণ প্রশ্নেরা পায়নি স্বীকৃতি। আজ অনেকদিন পরে নদীর তীরে কুন্তী দেখতে চান তার মৃত পুত্র। মৃতেরা ভিড় করে আসে, একে একে বীর যোদ্ধারা। কর্ণর দেখা মেলে, রাজবেশে পুত্রকে দেখেন কুন্তী।
তোমার দক্ষিণ হস্ত রাখো চিবুকে ললাটে। শুনেছি লোকমুখে জননীর পরিত্যক্ত
একদিকে পাণ্ডব, অন্যদিকে কাঙ্ক্ষিত মিলন। বলো না,
It's wonderful to welcome my colleague Dheeman Bhattacharyya, all the way from Shantiniketan in India. You just saw him with me and Keshob in the performance, and I'm delighted to welcome Dheeman and also a very special guest today, Manjula Kumar from Washington, D.C., joining us in discussion, and I'm really looking forward to it. Now over to Manjula to get us started.
Firstly, there should be another word than just congratulations. Both of you, Sreyashi, starting with you, your concept, choreography, your dance, what a challenge. I mean, you picked up, I think, a most difficult, complex, challenging theme, and then to put it in dance and convey it to an international audience. So I really commend you for picking it up, and of course, loved the piece. And the relevance of it is what struck me as I saw it again last night and was totally struck. I must admit, in all honesty, Mahabharata is not one of my absolute favorite epics. I always found it very hard to comprehend, understand, and like, as it were, and so on. So through the generations, grandmother, my parents, we in school and college, then here in the West, you know, we saw Peter Brooks's Mahabharata, and it's not a new or unknown work to talk about, but it's still very challenging, very complex. So, and it's brilliantly done. And I must say, as a child, I used to say, oh my God, Mahabharata has too many characters to remember. But Kunti and Karna have always remained, for me, not just the complexity, but the potential of those two characters, you know, to be put whether in literature, in poetry, and as you have so beautifully done, in dance. And there's drama, there's poetry, there's music. So many art forms came together in there, and I love the costumes as well. So my first question, I think, to you, Sreyashi, would be how did you frame this? And here we are, you and I, you're sitting in Florida, I'm sitting in Washington, D.C. How did you see it, not only, you know, to our generation, and even in India, the youngsters, how can we reach them? And what were the challenges sort of that you faced? And then I'm also fascinated by both of you. And, you know, there's a dance critic, Sarah Kaufman, who writes for the Post. I'm sure you must have read some of her. And the comment she once made about some dance, she says, lit from within the presence. And that's what I found in both of you, your work. It's like a light from within that was emanating to convey what to me really, and I'm repeating myself, a very difficult theme. And you've also used several dance forms, so I would love to hear from you, Sreyashi, to start off, how you thought about it, your concept, and using the different styles. And then Dheeman is going to tell us how he got into Karna. I would love to hear.
Sure. Well, firstly, thank you and much gratitude to you for not only liking the piece, but also watching it with a very special lens of contemporary relevance of, we are sitting here in the West. So what does it mean? So bringing in so many different aspects, which definitely went through my mind and Dheeman's mind. We had lots of discussions before we created the piece. And those were actually some of the most wonderful times, because we both sat in my apartment in Kolkata having tea and snacks and talking and brainstorming, just precious times, which we haven't been able to do because of COVID in the last few years. But I would actually say that those times are almost as enjoyable as performing, if not more, on many occasions.
You planted a seed and look how it's blossomed. Really.
Yeah. So thank you for watching it with, so precisely, and I really appreciate that. The framing of it, you're very right. The Mahabharata is such a huge epic. There's so many characters. There's so many twists and turns in the plot. And it's in its entirety, it's a very, very difficult epic, and the concepts in it and everything is just, it can be overwhelming. So we picked this one interaction between two characters, Kunti and Karna. There is a poem that was written by Rabindranath Tagore on Karna and Kunti. It's called Karna Kunti Shangbad. So that we used as the starting point. It was an imagined conversation between the two of them. Because, obviously not going into the entire story, in very, very short, Kunti was the mother of the Pandavas, the queen, and she had Karna before she was married, and she had to give up this child. So it brings up issues of abandoning one's child and why she had to do that. And then Karna grew up knowing that he had been abandoned, but he was raised by his parents, who were from a lower caste and a lower class in society.
So part of the whole case.
So
Kunti and Karna.
Yeah, and then the issues of his identity and how he grew up, how he sees himself, everything. So our piece is only about when the two meet, and the two, Karna and Kunti, they talk in the backdrop of the war. So it wasn't just an ordinary meeting. Everything in their meeting and in their conversation was in the context of the war and the pressures and the impending doom of war. And it actually has become so topical for us now, today, that we, the time that we are in the Russia-Ukraine conflict that's going on, unfolding before us right now. So it's so relevant. So it just goes on to show that, human character with war and peace and the destruction of war, it's just, these epics are thousands of years old. And here we are today, still in that situation. What war leaves us with? It leaves us with widows and children who are dead, sons who are dead, husbands dead, friends, everything, the destruction of war. So I think your question was, how do we make it relevant for the youngsters? Well, so we are using a very old epic. We are using dance forms which are also very old. They're classical, but I think the theme itself is so universal. So, I mean, I think and I probably will discuss it too. There are some guiding themes in the piece. So war is the background, the context for it, but there are some other themes that we have touched on. So I guess we'll discuss that. So let me stop here and go on to Dheeman, I guess, or if you had something else to say.
Dheeman and the making of Karna. getting into Karna's character?
Well, I think that we as performers, we are always in search of a text. And we actually start with a text because that is our initial training. And often when Sreyashi and I discuss projects as trained dancers, especially our forms, that is Odissi, uh, one thing we had in mind that we were just not going to dance. We were going to narrate a story.
Yes.
And I think that was very important for us that we were trying to convey something without being didactic.
Mm.
Because that is a huge challenge for artists.
Yes.
That is, uh, it's not always conveying a message, but also carrying that message in the body of how we train ourselves. Because that is, I think, what you want to know, that how do I train or how do I prepare myself for a character? As someone who is trained in Indian classical forms and a regular on stage, I must say here that my training or my preparation for this particular piece probably began with several other productions which I am doing right now in Kolkata or I have been associated with. Um Actually, Sreyashi and myself did a piece together, Ananta, for the first time when I was introduced to Sreyashi, and I played the role of the narrator, which talks about the elements, the five elements, which are so much part of our Indian classical tradition. But I think that journey continued. Why I'm saying this? Because for me, it was not just preparing Karna, but I think it is also the creative journey that I shared with Sreyashi, which probably culminated into Karnakunti Sangvad, because it is very difficult to achieve that kind of, I would say, equation which we call, because we were portraying mother and son, the anxieties associated with an abandoned son who is continuously telling the mother that if I am your firstborn, which is Pratham Partho, why did you abandon me?
Mhm.
And of course, the silence associated with that, which in a way triggered my imagination that how we are silenced and at times how we follow that path of silence. So, which could be beyond gender, beyond caste, and beyond class. And when war is the context, while I was sitting and redrafting the script for this, because these were mere spoken words, because it was a very interesting process in which we came out with the script, because it was so organic that all the discussions that we had now culminated into the dialogues or into movements. So it was not segments that we, this section will go for dialogue, this will be movement. We did not follow that path. Rather, whatever discussions, whatever brainstorming we did, as Roshi was telling, probably we took the energies, we took the movements and some spoken words from those discussions. Because as Sreyashi said, that it is a kind of imagined meeting of the mother and the son that Rabindranath is talking about. And we are extending that in our context. So definitely there are lots of intertextuality. For me, then Peter Brook is also a text for me. For me, the quote unquote popular Mahabharata on television, which I grew up with, is also a text. And then, of course, the way the classical body is trained to depict a particular epic character. And then having the modern body carrying the brunt of war zones, memories of war, memories of partition, because I am from a family who have memories of partition. So this kind of not being able to meet or detached, unwanted abandonment, these are probably part of my body memory, which I could associate
Yeah.
with.
And
So this is what I can say.
yeah, it's not a long piece. It's a fairly concise and for you as Karna to bring and convey the abandonment and what he says coming from Loka. Firstly, the shock of it, right? And all of that has to be presented, depicted, conveyed to a very, very mixed, audience, and you do it so powerfully. It was some of those scenes between both of you is very, very powerful. She could be just frozen, whatever. So Sreyashi, I had one more, the character of Kunti. Whatever adjectives, we use, female strength and determination. She's one of my favorite, female characters, not only as an epic character. And here we are celebrating Women's History Month, and we just had International Women's, and I was just thinking how pertinent this is to be thinking of this character. And through the ages, the adjectives, the descriptions haven't changed much. The values haven't changed much to today. And from from India to the West, we're talking about the same values. And so, again, I think it's similar that I would like to know from you how using this story, very important, powerful, brilliantly done. So how did you prepare? And especially the silence part of it,
Yeah.
Silence almost is a quality, it's abstraction, but how do you convey it?
Yeah. So I think, like many of the other characters in the Mahabharata, they are multifaceted. So they have different lives, they have, they're enmeshed in their family lives, in their political lives, because these are royal families. So there are many different, they're intertwined in different ways. There's politics, there's intrigue, there's betrayal, there is successes, failures, there's many, many different things. And everything in the epic is almost larger than life, right? It is like magnified, it's heightened. So all the emotions are very heightened as well and very grand. So it takes place in that very grand scale. And I guess that's why epics also survive, because they capture everybody's imagination. But at the same time, it was very important for me. So Kunti was this queen, and there's this whole concept of, she's strong, she's the mother of these 5 sons, and they've gone through a lot of ordeal. Their kingdom was taken away from them. Then there is this huge battle, this war that happens where a lot of them are killed, and she goes through everything, and she's, she has the fortitude to go through everything. But there is another narrative, which is not just of strength. It is about her being vulnerable. At the end of it, she's a woman, she's a mother, she's a wife, and she has not had an easy life. So yes, she was the queen. At the same time, she had to go through many things in her life. And I wanted to actually be able to touch that space of vulnerability in her. Because in this piece, when she's coming face to face with Karna, her long abandoned son for the first time, it doesn't matter whether she's a queen, doesn't matter, how strong she has been, what role she has played in the politics of the kingdom, all of that. She comes to him as a mother. Mm-hmm. Now, but then this is also the complexity of the epic. Even though she's coming to Karna as the mother, she wants to, ask him to come over to her son's side of the war. So there's all those subtexts happening. Unfortunately, she cannot even, this is the irony of it, she cannot even come to him purely as a mother. to show her pure mother's love and, reunite with him after all this time. She cannot even do that because the war is looming in the background. And her actions and what she says are also governed by that. Because she's there as a mother. At the same time, she's also there as a queen. She's also there as the mother of the other Pandavas who she fears for their lives if Karna is fighting the war from the other side. So she also has that at the back of her mind. So she cannot express her love. She cannot love him wholeheartedly because there is something pulling her back. So there's these constant dilemmas, which makes her very, very vulnerable. So in this piece, I just wanted to be able to express that vulnerability, to be able to express the silences that have been a part of her life, and to bring those dilemmas. So that's been my goal.
And that is part of the universality that I'm talking about, the vulnerability, and through that, her strength, and also how she strategizes almost, how to approach him and how to appeal to him. And that's very female, very female. And she does it so well. I also loved the music. The music was so apt, so appropriate. Sometimes you find either the dance or whatever, but to keep that balance. And it was so beautifully, I didn't catch the name, the female voice also, and was brilliantly done. It was recorded in Kolkata?
Recorded in Kolkata. The music was composed by Indrajit Sen. And the female voice, her name is Shubhamita. She has become one of the top singers, vocalists, musicians in India. When she recorded this for me, because this music was custom recorded for me, she was just starting out. I think she was not even very well known, but she has become very reputed now. So, but she brought that sense of pathos to it.
Amazingly, beautifully done. So all in all, you were putting it across in a minimalistic and very powerful, and that's what adds to the impact, of the entire the dance piece. And I know you like to say it's a theater piece. There's so much drama, there's poetry. And again, I think I'm asking you, how does this help? I'm thinking more about our youngsters here in the West, to get them engaged, to make them aware, as we touched on the topic of war, anti-war, and which it does beautifully, the eloquence of it, the passion, the pathos, the poignant scene between, the two of you. And so that, as I said, you have it recorded. Where all can we show it, as so many different art forms have come together to make this piece,
Right. Yeah, I think the relevance, I can see, and this is what we were talking about earlier, there are certain themes that we have touched upon in this piece. One, of course, is the background, the constant threat of war. In fact, they're right in the middle of war, and there's destruction and death and bloodshed and loss, and there's all of that going on. So there is that, which is
so beautifully, not like seeing the really disturbing, gruesome, visuals that we are watching these days.
Yeah, because
it's almost, it is poetic.
It is poetic because it's in the context of war. This is showing the humanness, the human cost, and the human pain and suffering of war, right? So it is not. We are not trying to show what's happening on the battlefield, although there are dance dramas and dances which portray war directly. But this piece is not directly about that. It's about the human side of it. So there is that. But I think there are also some other relevant issues. One, of course, is the abandonment of the child and adoption by, what does it mean for a child to be really, what does it mean for his or her identity to be, to be in this adoptive family, and that search for identity, which Karna is somebody who searched for his identity all his life in this epic.
But he also, in a very poignant way, really asks, why did you abandon me?
Yes. Yes.
And that is, I think, the mother who was forced to, and why and all that. And
Right.
for the son who has never perhaps been able to find an answer to his question, why did you abandon me?
Right. And actually that is something which is not just unique to an epic. It's not unique to just these kinds of mythological characters. That's something that perhaps every adopted child at
Today,
some point,
even today,
over the years, over the ages, including today, goes through.
Yes.
When they find out that they were adopted, probably that's a question that comes to every child's mind. But why? Why did my birth parents or why did my birth mother abandon me? Right? Or why was I given up for adoption? They want to know.
Yeah.
So it's
And
that
the agony
the agony of that, yes. And then, of course, the other theme was that of silence.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll let Dheeman talk about the theme of silence, because that's something that we talked about. And Dheeman, why don't you jump in here and talk a little bit about the silence aspect?
Well, as I said that when we were working on it together, we were continuously referring to the several texts that were available in Bangla. Like we referred to Buddhadev Boshu, we referred to several other available texts, because we have to remember that we do not read Mahabharata first or Ramayana, but somehow it becomes a part of our collective memory. So we have lots of associated texts. And for me, as a student of literature, my zone was like reading many Mahabharatas, which includes Mahabharata written in folk languages and other languages as well. So when we were talking about silence, I felt that there are multiple positions, locatedness of silences. It's about Kunti's silence. We were trying to read the several levels and layers of silences that we could talk about. And I think that here we connected our personal journeys, as Sreyashi is talking about, the agony, the silence associated with abandoning a child, why someone leaves a child, and what happens when the child recognizes who she or he is. Because recognition, I think, is a very important part of our epics, or even if you look at our classical theater, this is a very significant part, that when one character recognizes who she or he, primarily he is, and someone as huge like Karna, who can also be vulnerable. So I think that when we talk about vulnerability, when we talk about gender issues, at times we do ignore when a human being becomes vulnerable, irrespective of our gender. I feel that there are moments when Karna is also that vulnerable man who, being a great warrior, when the identity is unfolded, there are multiple silences in his life as well. So how do we encounter those silences? And then, of course, we have used, as you have rightly pointed out, that our idea was somehow to be minimalistic without being preachy, but then convey certain things by connecting the texts. I think Sappho, I'm deeply influenced by Sappho's anti-war cry in her lyric. So I feel that as you said, it is very poetic, the entire piece. I feel it's the lyrical quality which was added by the music. Because in a way, the
Yeah.
genre of lyric probably contests the masculine virility of the epic world. So that is why deliberately we have used a section from Sappho where we say that Sappho says in her fragments actually that men go out in war, but you leave the women and the children behind. So creating multiple silences. So in the hullabaloo and the glory associated with war, the celebration around war, at times we ignore the silences that war can create.
Right.
So that is something which we were trying to read. So Sappho also became a very important text for us. And I think this is the power of art where we could connect across space and time. As you say, that how contemporary this piece can be or how we can address it to an audience, younger audience of the West. I feel that this is the strength of poetry. This is the strength of performance traditions that the emotions, as we watch it again as performers, also as artists, also, I'm sure Sreyashi will agree with me. Moments we created, which were probably rehearsed, but then it is our, I think, our memory associated with the time we spent with our mother, the equation that we spent with our mother, all those came in. Only that is where we can think of universality that we are talking about, emotions. So there were really moments which I will always relive and always remember that we created on stage, which were, I think, very spontaneous,
I think.
beyond the script, beyond what we are thinking with our rational mind, beyond everything. It was what two characters were encountering. It was not Sreyashi or not Dheeman. Only I think those are moments which are very important for us as artists.
You know, Dheeman, you talked about, yes, the poetry based on Tagore's poem, and there's all those elements, music. But the one thing for me, the takeaway is how the silence that three of us have talked about has actually become eloquent. It speaks and therefore conveys in a very beautiful, meaningful way what it is trying to say. So I was really very, very impressed with that too. So Dheeman, let me ask you, because Sreyashi and I are living in the West, we are more, at least I am more aware of the sensibilities and all of audiences. And I'm talking about audiences across, not just at Shantiniketan or only Kolkata, but across, let's say in India. How does this resonate?
Oh, well, I think then I should talk about my experience of being a theater artist based out of Kolkata, traveling across India with shows. I must say that being a part of our 6-hour play, which is Urubhangam, I feel that that is the power, that is the language of theater, or that is the language of performance tradition that people till date in India, or more to be more specific in Kolkata. I'm really proud of my Kolkata audience that they still buy tickets for theater. They still remain seated for 6 hours to watch a play. So I'm really hopeful that without even identifying a particular target audience, let me put it this way, that there are two ways of looking at art when we produce art. One is that who are going to watch it from a commercial perspective as well from an artistic point of view. Because we perform for audience, definitely then we need to keep in mind our time, our space. And I feel that the process associated with creating a piece does address that what am I trying to convey at this moment in history? Because we are all part of history. So our memory as artists, our body memories, our collective memories are definitely conveyed within a particular space and time. So I can say that when it comes to such experimental pieces, we have to keep in mind that, as you have rightly pointed out, the duration. So I feel that it was really well conceived by Sreyashi when I heard the first brief. And it always happens when I'm working with Sreyashi. Probably that's a training, as you are continuously talking about the east-west part. I must say that probably that's a years of training of performing before an audience. In the West, she knows precisely what to convey within a particular span of time.
Mhm.
So when you say that, then I would say that this particular duration really worked not only for Karna Kunti, but I've been working with Sreyashi on several other short pieces, like even putting 3 20-minute pieces together to make it a continuum. So I've done that. That way I can say that this format really worked, and I had to convince myself that how is it possible to explore this journey within that span of time. And I believe that it really worked well with the audience. The reception was fantastic in Kolkata.
I have to see you both in person on the stage. Enough is enough, you know. Okay, so through the pandemic, we lived through it because of Zoom. We were able to communicate like we did today. Shantiniketan, Florida, and Washington, D.C. But so I would ask Sreyashi now, how do you, I know universities, you've taken it across to universities. The one thing that makes it easier in this format that you have, you're going to show it at the festival, is the very wide audiences, the possibilities, rather than, you know, the travel and how many where, etc. But it does take away, no, I want to see your piece in person,
And I have to say that, yes, through the pandemic, we have all, as artists and audiences, we've all got used to sort of
Zooming.
performing online and showing our work and actually creating work for the camera as well. But there is, I have to say, I mean, and I'm sure all artists will agree that there is nothing like performing live. And I still have not started that, but Dheeman has. He has started, and I think because it just goes back to our the theories of the rasa, the aesthetic, how you connect with the audience.
Yeah.
In that moment of connection, when it becomes when you're in that sahridaya state where your hearts are connected.
Absolutely.
Because of the power of the performance and the rasa and the emotions that are generated, that are created, and you become one. That is very difficult on an online medium. That's only possible.
And I mean, you talk to any performer, there's that warmth that is conveyed.
Yes.
From audience.
Manjula, you know that being a theater person, a director and an actor and so many other things that you do on the stage as well, that, the energy that goes both ways, from the artist to the audience and the audience to the art.
So when you haven't done well in a play, and Dheeman also knows that, you come out, what happened tonight?
Yes.
So yes, all that is missing, but we've all survived, and some have done amazing things in this online, and we've been able to reach. But I do hope very, very soon we get to see you on the stage. But I once again congratulate both of you for a beautiful, quite an unforgettable piece that brilliantly choreographed, danced, but I am amazed at the relevance, I keep saying the meaning today of the characters that you have formed, and also because we have a war going on. Every day we are watching, reading, and realizing the senselessness, the futility, the hopelessness, everything.
Yes.
Well,
Thank you. Thank you for watching the piece with such a discerning eye, and being able to pick up on all these different concepts and subtexts and everything else that went into making the piece.
And I wish you well, both of you. Come to our city anytime. And
thank you.
Welcome.
It's a pleasure to talk to you about our piece. Thank you, Manjula. Thank you, Dheeman.
Good luck.
So much. Thank you so much.